Mars the Word is the global health podcast with a worldly spin, delving into the stories of people from all walks of life and how they are having an impact on global health. We talk to global experts, community influencers, and tomorrow's change makers, and this guest is no different. Welcome to today's episode. I'm your host Musa with my co-host Yahya.
On today's show, we have Kawal Rhodes with over 9,000 citations, a titan of biomedical engineering research, and head of the School of Biomedical Engineering at KCL. Not only has Kawal had a massive impact on the cutting edge of medical and engineering innovation, but has also been a kind face at KCL for over 20 years and has had an extraordinary pathway from a medic to an engineer. So when I was stalking your LinkedIn, right? And it said that you were part of the United Medical Schools of St. Thomas and Guy's. And so you started out in medical school and then now you've wound yourself in this sort of like engineer, man of many talents. How does one go from studying to be a doctor to getting into research?
Yeah, great. So I'd like to obviously thank Musa and Yahya for inviting me to this podcast. So just a small, you give me a very flattering introduction, and I just want to make a small point of correction in that I'm not the head of biomedical engineering. So I'm the head of education in the School of Biomedical Engineering and Imaging Sciences at King's, and I have no ambitions to take my my boss's job yet. Anyway, so, yeah. But yeah, so interesting enough, I started off when I was at school. Was really pushed into doing medicine at university because I think you both of you will be familiar with how much pressure parents of in families of our culture.
Tell me about it.
They really push you, and so my parents were adamant that I would go and study medicine. So I did apply to study medicine, and I thankfully ended up. I actually applied to St. Thomas's Hospital to study medicine because St. Thomas's was its own medical school at the time, and Guy's was a separate medical school, and King's was a separate medical school, and so. I got accepted to St. Thomas's, and actually the year I joined, which was 1989, Guy's and St. Thomas's actually merged to become UMDS, which is the United Medical and Dental Schools of Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospital, and they were only teaching two courses, which were medicine and dentistry, and so. In the year that I started, we were a year of 200 students, and we would spend alternate days at Guy's and St. Thomas's, and we had our lectures at St. Thomas's in the Nevin Lecture Theatre, and at Guy's we had our lectures in the
Was it in Hodgkin's building?
It was the one when you walk through the security gates on the left. I forgot the name.
I think I know. Yeah.
It's the
Guy's Tower building.
No.
You walk in the Hodgkin building, the lecture theatre on the left.
How have I forgotten as well?
It's the
Harris Lecture Theatre. Yeah.
It's the Harris Lecture Theatre. So my first experience of the two campuses was my first day was in the Nevin, and then the next day we were in the Harris, and we would just alternate between the two doing our medical degree. Of course, the medical degree in those days was very different to what it is now. It was split, as all medical degrees were, into a sort of preclinical block where you just studied the basic medical sciences, and then you transitioned to the clinical work. So when I was there, I really enjoyed the preclinical subject. So we really did study the medical sciences as pure sciences, so anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, biochemistry. These were the actual like modules that we were
studied the discipline.
Exactly. So really, yeah, exactly. And then that was for 2 years, and then in the last 3 years you do the clinical work. I started off doing that, and actually in my third year I did an intercalated degree in radiological sciences. It was called back then. And now actually the degree is still active at KCL. It's called imaging science. In fact, I was the course director of that degree for many, many years, and it's under my portfolio of the programs I look after. So I took that in my third year, and actually that was more like really hardcore maths and physics of imaging and sort of more like the technology sort of healthcare, and that really got me interested on that side. And actually, after that year, I was never the same again. And all I did was long to do more of the same.
Yeah.
And when I got into my final year at UMDS on the medical degree, I got offered some PhDs, and I got offered a PhD with my colleagues at in the radiological sciences department at Guy's and Tommy's, and also I got offered a PhD at Oxford, and I decided to take the one at Guy's and Tommy's. And in fact, my supervisor, my first supervisor, was a professor called Alex Savalian, and he actually moved to UCL. And therefore, I did my PhD there.
Oh, that was one of the questions.
So I was based over. So basically, I interrupted my medical degree. I actually had completed. I was doing finals actually, and I literally had completed half of my exams, and then I just decided that I'd interrupt to do my PhD. In fact, I just needed any excuse to probably get out of clinical medicine, because I couldn't see myself doing that in the future.
Yeah.
So I took up the PhD, and I was actually based at the Department of Surgery at UCL at the Royal Free Hospital, which is just north of Camden. And so I'd spend usually 2 or 3 days there, and then 2 or 3 days at Guy's, because the Radiological Sciences Department, which is the sort of pre-runner to my current school, is based at Guy's. And so I did that PhD for 3 years, and then I was offered a job at Guy's and St Thomas's in the radiological science department, and I started working there in 2001, and that's where I've been ever since.
So you never went back to finish?
No. So I think at the time it was well, for me it was not a difficult decision, because I was so into my research and the sort of science that I was doing in the sort of healthcare technology arena, that I just didn't want to. I couldn't have broken my sort of rhythm, I guess. I would have had to go back and repeat my last year.
Yeah.
That would have been what I would have had to do. And seeing that I didn't really ever see myself like doing my pre-reg year or anything like that. I just did not at the time think that it was a good idea. A lot of people said, you need to go back and finish, and and if I look back on it, there could be a time when I regretted it, because in the early stages of my career, because if had I finished and then carried on research, my salary would have been much better. But then the lines, the graphs cross where at the point where you stop regretting it.
Yeah.
So,
You have to make a decision.
yeah. So but all of those years I spent studying medicine, of course, that's invaluable to what I do now, because now my focus is looking at developing the technology of the future that's going to help deliver the healthcare that we need.
Yeah, in many ways, you're like the doctor's engineer.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one. In fact, there's a few people who are similar in that background, who are in the School of Biomedical Engineering and Imaging Sciences. It is a great background to have, because you can basically speak the language of the two types of people that you need to work with, which are the sort of technical engineering, mathematics, physics, computer science type, and of course the healthcare professionals. So, and of course, each of these different professions or the different areas, they have a unique language. I mean, both of you are currently studying medicine, and the language of medicine is something that you have to learn. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's complete jargon.
Yeah.
I mean, you get that a lot because you both work as HCAs, right? So you kind of see the constant abbreviation of things that might not need to be abbreviated. They sort of made their own language in many ways.
And then when you speak to patients, you obviously need to translate it in a more simplistic way for them to understand.
Absolutely. So it's, for me, it's the same. It's like when I'm working with the engineering team, I need to sometimes translate the the medical stuff for them.
Yeah.
And then when I'm speaking to the medical guys, I need to translate the engineering stuff.
He's bilingual in 2 different subjects.
Exactly. So I'm not the only one. In fact, if we obviously teach the engineering, biomedical engineering, in the degree from my school, and every year about 2 or 3% of the students will follow up their engineering degree with a medical degree. In fact, currently we have one of my engineering graduates who's just about to go into a final year at King's for medicine. So he'll be the first engineer doctor that we graduate at King's, which I'm looking forward to. But we've already graduated engineer doctors, as it were, at different universities.
And there's an intercalation as well for biomedical engineering.
That topic is interesting in that, we run the imaging sciences integrated BSc for like 30 years. And of course, I benefited hugely myself from that degree. But it actually was the last year for that degree. So now that degree has been, retired, shall we say. And the history behind that degree is actually super interesting because actually it gives me a very personal connection with the DNA story, because the integrated BSc in imaging sciences, or radiological sciences as it was known previously, was put together by Professor Raymond Gosling. And Professor Raymond Gosling was the PhD student of the Rosalind Franklin, who's accredited with all the work on crystalline DNA and the X-ray crystallography images. But it was actually Professor Gosling who actually took that famous picture known as photograph 51. And he was actually, when I was doing integrated BSc, he actually taught us an entire module, and I had the privilege of spending some of my project time working under his guidance as well. So that's really like a personal connection. And so that integrated BSc has now ceased to exist, but moving forward, we have got the trend, I think, now is for students maybe to be considering in their integrated year, maybe consider master's degrees, because of course now at King's the students are doing their master's, the integration after year 3, so they can certainly do master's courses. And we have some amazing master's courses that we're running out of our school. So we have the lovely new course in MedTech Innovation Entrepreneurship, looking to get medical students involved in creating the startups, healthcare startups, and helping to build that technology in the future. And then, of course, we have another MSc Healthcare Technologies, and that's sort of, again, mainly topics like robotics, AI, imaging, molecular imaging and smart molecules, and a new stream for next year, neurotechnology. So actually, we're hoping that the medical students will come and do those master's courses rather than making up a new integrated BSc, because we do think our students are remarkably gifted and talented, and certainly capable of doing a master's in the middle of their medical degrees.
In 2019, you did an interview with Ellen Rossiter, did I say that correctly? From Bioscience Today, where you noted that the BSc you took in medical imaging for a year is what started your research career. Could you elaborate on this a bit more?
Yeah, so, it follows on from what we were speaking about. The integrated year is an extra year that you do as part of your medical degree, and students have the option of studying so many different subjects, very different to their mainstream medical subjects. I didn't venture too far in that. I just went for medical imaging, but actually when I did that degree, it was I started in September 1991. Imaging was still quite in its infancy in many ways. It wasn't so mainstream as it is right now, and some of the things that were coming, the research that was being done was absolutely remarkable. So for me to be involved in that and to learn about the technology and how all the different imaging systems work, and the maths and the physics behind it, and then also to be carrying out research in that domain, for me it was just a game changer, because it opened my eyes, really. We hadn't had any experience of medical research before, and unlike now, where that sort of research stuff is built into our new medical curriculum at King's from an early stage, encouraging our students to be the thinkers and the researchers of tomorrow. That it wasn't like that when I was a medical student. And that exposure to research really made me understand that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to be. In fact, I worked, the course director at the time, actually, who still works with us, actually, Dr. Graham Taylor. I just spent my project under, working with him, and I stayed in the summer after I graduated in the summer of '92, working with him. I just wanted to be like him,
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing. It's like when you have certain role models that you find they are good role models, and then you can see yourself being that person, right? And so I just said, I want to do what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
And then really, actually, it was Dr. Taylor who I went to for some advice when I wasn't having such an enjoyable time in the clinical years of a medical degree. I asked him, look, I want to do what you do. How do I get there? Right? I had no clue, right? And he explained to me that you need to go and apply for you need a PhD to be doing this type of work in the university. I didn't know that, right? In fact, back then, not many PhDs weren't particularly common, and it would be so it was in our minds the PhD was only for like super boffins, or it was something that was untenable, as it were, right? But
this was your leap of faith.
yeah, exactly. So he told me that you need to do the PhD, and then we found some PhD available options, and I applied, and I ended up getting interviews and getting accepted, and that's what launched my career. I'm forever thankful for it. But I think many of us, when we go through life and we reflect back, we identify some key moments in our lives where things change for us, and sometimes there's a bit of luck, or sometimes it's someone you meet, or there's something like happens, and your whole life then goes onto a different track. It's like a fork in the road that comes.
Yeah.
And had you gone down the other road, it may not have been so good, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I can reflect back in life, and I can look at those forks that I met, and I've always, thank God, managed to get the lucky break and go down the right road at the fork, right?
Yeah, but I kind of think luck is like when opportunity meets preparation. So you already had the time, and you did the grind, and then you had the opportunity. So to someone on the outside, it looks like you're wasting the 2 years of your final medical school, but then in reality, you're jumping on something that is a change in the world. The world was changing at that time, and you were just jumping on an opportunity that may not last forever.
Absolutely, and I think I still have that same mindset, and that a lot of my colleagues, they will really focus on one area of research, really go into it, and they'll probably spend their entire research life just looking at that one area. What I do is I look at what is hot, and what are the needs, what's happening now, and what's going to happen in 20 years time. Let's be doing that. Let's get involved in that. So I've just my PhD was on looking coronary artery disease, image analysis, and so forth. It was important at the time, And then I got into heart disease and trying to build systems to help patients who are having interventions. And then in the last 6 to 10 years, it's been completely changed. I work on robotics, and I work on additive manufacturing, 3D printing. I just look at what the technology that is changing, and let's just get involved with it, and let's see how we can use it to the best ability, in the best possible way for the future. So I'm not really stuck on any one thing. I could be doing something else tomorrow. I mean, in fact, recently I was reading about one of my former colleagues, and she was again doing very similar work to me, and now she's totally switched. She works for UCL. She just does work with the museums, and employs all that knowledge that we have learned in the sort of medical domain to looking at how we create artifacts and so forth, because imaging and image analysis and all these 3D printing, all is so important in that sort of sphere as well. So I'm just thinking, God, I wouldn't. Maybe that could be something I'd like to do, right? Because, as I said, I was saying to you guys earlier, I'm a bit of a collector, although my wife might call me a hoarder. But I like that environment of the museum. So I'd be the ultimate ultimate thing for me to do would be to work for the Natural History Museum or work for the Science Museum.
Or the Museum of Watches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recently, I got into watch collecting a little bit. Started off with the Casio.
Yeah, actually, if you go to the Science Museum, you see they have a gallery on time and timepieces. So they've got the early clocks by Harrison, the maritime clocks.
Yeah.
And then it all goes, eventually, they have an LCD, an LED, clock with the, like Seiko, and then they have some Casios, and, so they've got the whole timeline going back from like sundial up to latest, like the atomic clocks, in Greenwich and so forth.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I was going to say, you mentioned, people that you looked up to and you wanted to be like. You mentioned before about Professor Raymond Gosling. How was it working under him, and how did your time in that intercalation impact your methods as a professor now and your willingness to help guide other students?
Yeah, I think I think in my university years, I think largely I can say that experience has been, at UMDS and then merged with King's in the 90s. And, my experience as a student and at UCL has been really positive. And I've been privileged to have a lot of amazing teachers and role models, right? So, and then, we learn how. So that good experience has also helped me to, try to be the best teacher and role model for my own students, right? Mm-hmm. It's not always the case. Sometimes you have the opposite experience. Actually, you learn from someone exactly what not to do, right, as well. But I would say I've been lucky for most of my life in terms of my education, that I have had very generally very good teachers, and that's really helped me to be a good teacher now. So, and that's like for teaching. But in terms of research, again, the people that I've been involved with for research have been super stimulating. So I mentioned Dr. Taylor, who I worked with on Doppler ultrasound during my integrated BSc, and that was a similar project that Professor Gosling was working on there to determine transit time in the aorta to try to help in diagnosis of diabetes and monitor deterioration of blood vessels due to diabetes. And then subsequently, really my PhD supervisors, who are both really eminent professors. So Professor David Hawkes, formerly head of radiological sciences at UMBS and King's, and then head of medical engineering at UCL. He's recently retired. He was super influential, great, absolutely one of the titans of healthcare tech research globally. And then my other supervisor, Professor Alex Thalian, one of the really gods of tissue engineering, professor at UCL, and absolutely one of the big names in tissue engineering. So these guys, obviously, they were my mentors when I was doing my PhD, and so that really helps you to frame things. And then when I finished my PhD, I got my job at King's under two amazing people. So Professor Rosa Brazavi, who was the head of my school, and then went on to be the head of research for King's, the entirety of King's, and then Professor Derek Hill, who went on actually to mainly go into industry and being highly successful with his own company and so forth. So again, these guys were very influential, and so I had a sort of really good role models and people who I could really look up to and learn from to develop my own gradually develop my own independent research team.
Yeah. And having done research with you beforehand, I mean, like, you were probably an inspiration to me, because like I was telling Musa before, when we were entering, I was kind of wanted to do something with engineering and medicine together, but there was like no real like out there like role models. And so the question I wanted to ask was, from what you've learned from your PhD and everything that you've done, you took it then to Mechatronics, right? Which was a private and healthcare firm. What was the differences between working over there and then also working in like the public space in terms of universities and stuff.
Okay, so the timeline is, so I've always been into engineering stuff, or computer science stuff since I was very young. So I grew up in the, let's say, late 70s, early 80s, those sort of formative years. And there was huge changes going on, in particularly computing technology. So I had my first computer at the age of 10. You'd be shocked to know the specification of that computer. So it had, it was its clock speed was 1 megahertz. So now we talk gigahertz, right?
Yeah.
And its RAM was 1K, 1 kilobyte. So now we talk gigabytes.
What computer was it?
It was a Sinclair ZX81. So Sinclair was a British entrepreneur and technology guru. He recently passed away, actually, but he basically, his mission was to bring computing to the home of every person in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And he really did it, right? Because he made affordable computers, like a computer in 1980 released his first home computer, the ZX80, and it was £100, £99. It was a lot of money back then,
Yeah.
but it was like,
For a computer.
but to buy a computer that maybe you were using in a company or in the school, it'd be thousands of pounds. So he managed to make you a computer for £100, which means it's a little bit like the same philosophy of things like Arduino and Raspberry Pi and so forth. They're really affordable, technology that everyone can have, and therefore you can start using it when you're really young. So I got my first one when I was 10, and my parents bought it for me secondhand. It cost £40. There's a nice story that goes with that, which a lot of people who know me know the story, because my parents saw an ad for a family that were, in fact, they were a Sri Lankan family that were going to move back to Sri Lanka. They had enough of London, and they were going back to Sri Lanka. They were selling everything they owned, so there was a house clearance, basically. My parents were after some furniture, and particularly they wanted to buy a bed for my bedroom. And so we went to the family's home, and when I walked in there, I realized that so it was a mother and her son, and I realized that he had a ZX81 computer, and I was like, wow, right? And then I said to him, are you taking that back to Sri Lanka, or are you selling it? He goes, no, we're going to sell it. Right? So then I just went straight to my parents and said, please buy me this computer, right? So it was £40. That was a lot of money. That was probably in 1981 or 80, whenever we bought it, like 81, 82. That was probably a good few weeks of my dad's wage or something like that. So it was a lot of money, right? So and we aimed to spend about £10 on furniture, which would have bought us like a few cupboards and a bed. And so my parents have been so supportive in my life, right? In fact, we walked out with that computer and nothing else. So that was like, that's what I was saying about like some things that happen in your life that just like
Pivotal.
Yeah, and like getting that computer was really important, because I learned how to program when I was like 10 years old, and then I got a big interest in computers, and so I actually learned a lot on software and electronics, and I just taught myself that stuff. And then in the 90s, while I was a medical student, I did a consultancy work for some companies on mechatronics, and I learned about building industrial scale mechatronics things, and so again, just sort of self-learned that, but then really getting involved in some large-scale projects with companies as a consultant and so forth. That's where my interest on that side came from. But I never really that wasn't really part of my research, my early research. I only started doing robotics or healthcare robotics when probably 2010, something like that. Really only started down that line when, again, there was a bit of a change in what was going on in mechatronics. A lot of affordable components, easy accessible components. Also, technologies coming along, like 3D printing and so forth. Which means that you didn't need to, have a million pound lab to do that sort of stuff. You could do it on a reasonable budget. Right? And again, that goes back to technology, how when it becomes like low cost and more widespread, it becomes accessible, it becomes a bit of a game changer. Then like, a lot of rapid development can take place, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I got into sort of mechatronics, I guess.
So how did you end up working as a consultant in your fourth year of medical school, right?
Yeah, so actually, I owe that to one of my cousins. So he's basically been working all of his life in industrial testing and high energy X-rays and whatever. And again, another example of a really good role model. So his name's Davinder Singh, and he owns his own company. And I ended up, and he gets a lot. He had a lot of contracts with numerous large scale companies in the UK, and he just got me involved. And I was very fortunate for that, and I learned a lot while I was doing those projects, and that's how I got involved. And then after that, I ended up actually doing some projects for other companies and so forth. So, because as you know, I mean, when you're a student, you always want to have some side things that you do, right? But for me, the side things were like things I was really interested in, and it wasn't just about money. But for me, those things were really important because I got to learn a lot of things, which I deployed many years later in healthcare while in my research career.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You mentioned that you worked with different organizations. With the amount of partnerships the biomedical engineering school has with big players in the industry, such as Phillips, how does it feel seeing what you and your students build being implemented?
Yeah, that's obviously one of the things that my school is really renowned for is taking ideas and really trying to getting them all the way into the product line of companies. Yeah, whether it be partnering, as you said, Musa, with big companies like Philips, or like via startups and so forth. Right, we've got a real good track record for that. And for me, one of the projects that I was involved with in the early 2000s was a project with Philips, because the school had a very strong connection with Philips, particularly all the imaging systems. So I got involved in a project which basically ran for about 7 or 8 years, and we ended up being quite a large team, sort of a team of about 15 people. Some of us based at Guy's and St Thomas's, and others within Philips. And we managed to develop a number of key technologies for assisting in interventional cardiology procedures, and that they are things that I'm very proud of, because actually you can still go onto Philips' website and you'll see those products are still being sold. So the first one was a product called EP Navigator, which was released in 2008 by Philips. It's still in their product line. And then in 2012, there was a follow-on product called Echo Navigator, which is again still in their product line. These are all about using imaging to guide keyhole interventional procedures. I guess for people that are not clued up on this, the easy way to describe it is like a Google Maps for surgeons. So it's literally a technology which gives you a map of your patient's anatomy, and shows the instruments and where you are inside the anatomy. So it's a bit like Google Maps. So that shows where you are inside in the local sort of road layout or whatever. So that was a technology we developed, and I think it is it's wonderful to see something like that being deployed, because then you know that that technology is being used to treat patients. Right? I mean, I'll just give you an example. I was visiting a hospital. It was actually just before COVID. In fact, last time I traveled out to the States, I was visiting a hospital there to do some work, and then I walked into the cardiac catheterization laboratory, and I see that they're using one of the products that I helped to develop. And I said, that helped to make that.
I wonder who made that.
Right, okay. But that's just I was just so it's so fulfilling that you can be in another country and you walk into a hospital and you walk into the cath lab and they're actually using something you made to treat the patient.
Like a proud dad moment.
Yeah, so it was, yeah, so that's nice. And we work with a lot of different companies. I mean, we still have our relationship with Phillips, but over the last 10 years, I've been working with Siemens Healthineers. That sort of Siemens branch of like healthcare technology. They're a huge player. I mean, Siemens is a huge engineering company. I mean, they make all sorts of things that people will recognize.
They made the first phone, right?
The first
phone was a Siemens phone.
Yeah, that might be true. They make for sure. They make telecom technology. They make a lot of the infrastructure for the railways as well. Next time you're at a railway station, just look around and you're going to find some things that say Siemens on them. But of course, they make all the sort of healthcare tech, the imaging systems, and so forth. So we actually have about 10 or 15 people from Siemens based at St. Thomas's who work alongside us. So we've been working with them for about 10 years, developing new technologies for healthcare. And yeah, I mean, it's really nice to be able to work with companies because then the research is going somewhere, and it's going to actually go and help healthcare. Whether it be the healthcare professionals or whether it be patients or it's going to go and have a positive societal impact.
That's super cool. You don't have to answer this pretty technical question. In like that sort of time, who gets the patent with King's, with the team, with Phillips or Siemens?
Yeah. So if you develop your ideas together, then you may jointly be holding patents. I don't have a huge patent portfolio. I think I have about 10 patents, and I mean some of my colleagues have hundreds. Right? So, but I'm not really. I try to go translational, but not be obstructed too much by the IP issues. So I will try to take the shortest route to getting something translated. IP can, as well as being, obviously it's a key thing in when you're innovating and building technology, and having IP and holding IP is very good for the company. Of course, our company is King's College London. So, but sometimes there's an advantage just to sharing that out. So a lot of the patents that I'm authored on are held with Phillips and Siemens. Have a few by King's. So yeah, you tend to, whoever comes up with the ideas is the person that should be holding the IP. If we work with King's, then King's will have a share of that IP as well. And so that having that IP like portfolio is useful. It's particularly useful if you want to make your own companies, or you want to use that IP to generate revenue. Me personally, the goal for me is to help other people. So I don't think my driver is. I don't have a financial driver to what I do, but that's a personal thing. Everyone works in different ways, right? Obviously, I work for a company, which is King's College London, and I can't. I need to make sure that I don't. I need to make sure that the finances are all healthy as well. So I need to generate revenue for King's. I do, but maybe not by research so much, but certainly by education.
What are your thoughts about the rapid acceleration of technology, and how do you feel this could be used in maternal healthcare?
Yeah, so I think obviously maternal healthcare or women's health is a huge topic. I mean, it's an area that many healthcare professionals go and specialize in. I've actually been working on a project that's related to maternal well-being for the last 10 years. So one of the big projects that I've worked on, in fact, it's one of the biggest projects that I've worked on, is a project called iFind. It's called, the acronym stands for Intelligent Fetal Imaging and Diagnosis. And the project was motivated by the fact that fetal imaging, particularly ultrasound, which is used for fetal scanning. So everyone in the UK, for example, gets 2 fetal ultrasound scans, one at 10 weeks and one at 20 weeks. Now, the 20-week scan is also known as the anomaly scan. It's used to find out if there are any major things wrong with the developing baby. And what surprised us when we were looking into this is that we found that on average in the UK, about 50% of major fetal anomalies are missed at the 20-week scan. That's an alarming statistic, and that's because of the really large variation in skill involved in terms of doing the ultrasound scanning and then the diagnosis from the images. Because ultrasound images are not particularly easy to read. So if you have someone who's highly skilled, so if you keep the symptomasis, the detection rate maybe is 99% or something like that. I don't know the exact figure, but it's going to be very high. But on the other hand, if you went to a hospital maybe that is less well resourced, it may be down at 30%. So you're missing 7 in 10 major anomalies, like maybe congenital heart disease or something like this. So we decided that we're gonna have a go at fixing this, and it was a huge project. It involved about 35 researchers, about 14 million pounds of funding from the Wellcome Trust, actually. And my part of that was working to develop a robotic system that would do the fetal scanning. And the idea was to develop a robot that could do the fetal scanning in a very thorough way, coupled to an AI system that would look at the ultrasound images and decide whether the developing fetus was healthy or not. You wouldn't believe it, that project started, I think, about 10 years ago. It's still going. And actually, this will give you an idea of how long it can take to develop things which actually you can then use in human beings. We made this robot that can do the scanning, and actually it's unique because it can do something that humans can't do, and that it can scan with 2 ultrasound probes at once. It's like the old the rub your head and your tummy at the same time. Humans can't really do that very well because not many of us are so ambidextrous. But we made this robot that can actually hold 2 ultrasound probes and scan. And we spent years and years developing it, and then we tested it in about 100 healthy human beings to make sure that it was safe. And we were just about to go on to try to test it in pregnant women and do some 20-week scans when we had to close the whole study down because of COVID. And only now have we got the study back up and running. We recently managed to recruit our first pregnant women to be scanned with the robot, and it will definitely be, and this is going to happen imminently in the next few months or weeks even. We're just waiting to organise a time for our first volunteer, and it will be the first time in the UK that a pregnant woman will be scanned by a robot.
Yeah,
wow,
that's insane.
Yeah.
A lot of groundbreaking work. I think there was one back in 2001 where they had 2 twins that they were trying to separate using ultrasound. So it could be like the next version of that, right? I think there's also two doubles,
Yeah.
2 W's at the same
I'm looking
time.
forward to that first.
So your career path so far has been unorthodox, to say the least, and it's been deeply rewarding just listening to you speak about your pathway through this. When me and Musa were picking our A-levels, biomedical engineering was a new option. Like it was one of the newer things. And how was it trying to get biomedical engineering as a subject off the ground?
Yeah, well, I think King's was one of the latecomers to the scene, really. Historically, my school, we had not really taught many courses, and the only undergraduate degree we taught was the one we spoke about earlier, which was the 1-year program for the medical students to integrate BSc in imaging sciences. And in 2011, we decided that we need to be teaching engineering, right? So I was part of the team that actually created the biomedical engineering degree at King's, and we started teaching the degree. We had our first intake in September 2012. So actually, we just recently celebrated 10 years of the course. Yeah, and we were one of all the sort of Russell Group universities, we were one of the last to be offering that degree course. And so we have what you could call one of the youngest, shiniest biomedical engineering degrees. Actually, I shortly after the inception of the degree in 2012, I became the course director of the degree. So I was course director of biomedical engineering, I think, for about 4 or 5 years, something like that, before I was appointed head of education, and then I relinquished my leadership of that course. But it's actually making degree programs. It's actually very exciting. So obviously we've spoken about some of the research that I do on the education side. The way I think about it is this is as valuable, if not more valuable, than the research that I do, because you're creating the doctors, the engineers, the mathematicians, the physicists, the computer scientists. You're creating those individuals who are going to be the custodians and changers of the future for society, right? So it's so important. Every time anyone asks me, what's the greatest thing you've ever done in your life? And I would say every time we graduate someone from the university on one of our courses, that is the great achievement. All of the graduates that we've created, because these guys, go on to do some amazing things. Right? So creating degree courses is actually quite an exciting thing to do. I love it. So you start off with a blank canvas, and basically you want to make a course which is going to be the best. So you have to think, like, what are the requirements? You can't think about, when you make a degree course, you have to think, what are the requirements of the future of society? We need to graduate those individuals that are going to be meeting those requirements. Yeah, we want to have courses that will educate our students, give them the knowledge, understanding, and skills, but also give them the employability and the motivation and the desire and the ethics and integrity to be the leaders and the creators of the great society of the future. So it's a great responsibility, and I just enjoy it. So I love being part of the team that made the biomedical engineering degree. And you know what? We don't rest on our laurels. We change it every year. We look at what's hot. We need to put that in, right? We look at what's off trend. We need to take that out, right? We're changing it all the time. Like when AI came to the fore, we put in AI modules, we make that come to the fore, we then change them, and then we make them optional at the beginning, and then we think, no, everyone needs to know this, we make it compulsory now, right? So everyone has to do AI and so forth, right? When robotics was like trending, it still is, like, we need to put more robotics in and so forth. So creating these degree courses, I think, is such a rewarding thing. And I know it's like we talked earlier about research and creating things that go into products and how rewarding that is. But it's the same with degree courses, because we see the students graduating, and then they reflect back on the course, and they come back with a really good feedback, and you realize that what you did is a great thing. If the students had a great experience, and then they get the jobs, or they go on to themselves do further degrees or research degrees and so on, and you see the outcomes. You look at those outcomes and you see that they're so positive, so what you're doing is right and worthwhile, and it's a super rewarding thing. It's as if not more rewarding than my research thing that I do.
Yeah, just like doing the curve with you last year, you could really see that you you enjoyed just like you enjoyed giving people these opportunities and like seeing what comes out of it. You're not a micromanager. You're very much this is what I would like. What would you would like? And
I think with research, you want to, obviously we've got our ongoing research projects, but if you keep it very restrictive, then the students who, like yourselves, you guys are super smart, right? You're much smarter than I am, right?
I don't know about that.
You're much smarter than I am, right? My neuronal count is on the slide, right? And so I rely on my students to be the sharp end of the sword, as it were, right? And the thing is, I don't want to blunt that by being restrictive, right? So you want to encourage, so my job, I think, is like, it's just like I'm just a guardian or custodian, where I just provide a framework, and I'm the just to stop the students, helping them go in the right direction, and then just giving them gentle nudge every now and then. Not everyone operates like that for research and with their team, but I tend to operate like that. And actually, not every student likes to operate like that, right? So you have to be to work with me and my research group. We got summer is now almost upon us, and I think we're hosting like 40 or 50 students over the summer in my research team. But those students, the ones that are going to get the most out of it, they have to fit into my style, right? Not everyone will. Some students, they need a lot more supervision and a lot more guidance. They do A, B, C, D. And others, they are going to be really, if you just give them the framework, you give them the tools, they will go away and they'll run with that and be successful. So, I guess you got a bit of exposure to it last year while you were working with my team. I mean, I'm just going to see what comes out. I mean, what you guys did was amazing. I mean, we made that the interventional cardiology robot out of Lego, which was mind blowing, right? We've used that. We used that at the New Scientist live exhibition. It was one of the top draws at the stand. In fact, just in case you didn't know, our exhibit, the Healthcare of the Future, got voted by the attendees of New Scientist Live 2022 as the #1 exhibit.
I didn't know that.
So
#1.
You were part of that, right? So so and we're back again this October again to do that again. And the Lego robot is still something we used it for some few more outreach events. So I'm doing a school outreach event in Sutton, which is the borough. I mean, I'm from Croydon. Sutton's the adjacent borough, and Sutton Steam Festival. I'll be going out there with my research team. We'll be taking the Lego robot as well with us.
Nice.
That was so. I mean, the thing is, something like that. I was believing. It's just an eye opener, isn't it? It's like you don't have to doing like medical robotics or whatever. It really isn't rocket science. You can do it in Lego, right? So and in fact, if children see that, because they can identify with Lego, the young kids, what they can do with the Lego bricks is just totally amazing, right? If they see that that this is this is a Lego device that could be potentially heart surgery, but then they get inspired, I would think, and it makes them believe that the things that they're learning now they could extrapolate to doing amazing things with them in the future.
You should get Lego to sponsor you or something.
That was the goal, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I should have
Contact them.
I can't remember if I tagged them in the social media post. Yeah, that post got a lot of attention. It still gets attention.
I was shocked with the LinkedIn post because there was some pretty big names just like commenting down there.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So like I was saying, EW3 is like a personification of you, and when you walk into EW3, because Musa hasn't been, it is just there's 100 different things going on and everyone's open to talking. So I think I learned a lot more from the people around there than I did learn a lot from the project, but there was a lot more from the people around there.
Yeah, that's our mechatronics lab at St Thomas's, which we use to teach our engineering students. But over the summer, it's a project lab, and it'll be transforming at the beginning of June when we get our new summer students. So I've got something like 11 students who are coming on curve projects. We've got 3 or 4 on the Folsom Summer Studentship Scheme, and on top of that, I've got a project, the two, which is sponsored by the Royal Academy of Engineering to help black students, particularly in engineering, and we've got about 3 or 4 students joining from that project too. So yeah, it should be a busy summer.
Busy summer.
Yeah. I haven't worked out all the projects that are going to be happening yet, but I've got a fair idea of what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Just to wrap up, because we kind of mentioned everything on the docket. How do you plan your time to do all these different sort of projects?
Yeah, time management's really important, and I tell you one thing I don't do is cram my diary with stuff, because there's only so much a person can do, and also I do believe in a good work-life balance, and you need time off, you need time doing other stuff, but also work time. So I'm not one of those people that's going to be working like 24/7, right? Although some people might think I do, because like if you message me or whatever, you usually get a response pretty sharpish. But I tend to have a sort of normal working day, and I don't work weekends. And the key is just don't take more than you can deliver on, right? Yeah. So I'm one of those people that I will do things, but I will do my utmost best to deliver on them. And also, it's been a lot of I and me and whatever, but actually it isn't about that. It's about my team, right? So it's actually who you work with, right? And get the most out of people. So I'm just very fortunate. I have a lot of really good colleagues, and also my research team is exceptional. And they help me with a lot of stuff. Without them, I don't think I could do 95% of what I do, because then it would be just me and I, and that's not going to be able to do what we've been speaking about. So really all that success, everything that we've been speaking about, is to do with my school and my colleagues around King's and my team that I've had over the years.
Perfect. It was very eye-opening talking to you.
Yeah, it was an honor. Yeah, it was good. I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah, and it kind of gave me a pathway to life now that I can sort of use.
You've got someone to look up to now.
I found my Dr. Taylor.
Well, yeah, I think we all find people to look up to. But there's a lot of good people that teach you guys, so you won't be short of good.
I feel like Alistair Hunter this year was at the forefront of pretty much everything. Yeah,
Definitely was.
He's a very good teacher, isn't he? He's a nice guy, actually.